Bridgewater Township Zoning Board of Adjustment to order. Thank you for your patience. We are coordinating a lot of moving parts, so I appreciate you being patient as we get to the order of business this evening. I'm going to start, as I always do, and I think I'm too loud now. The open public meeting announcement. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10.10:4-6, specifically on January 28, 2026. Proper notice was sent to the electronic news sources of record, filed with the municipal clerk at the Township of Bridgewater, and posted on the municipal bulletin board. Please be aware of the Zoning Board of Adjustment policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. With that, if you are able, I'd like you to rise and join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Nancy, may we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Kulak.
Here.
Mr. Wodelli.
Here.
Mrs. Amin. Mr. Frank.
Here.
Mr. Fresco. Ms. Henderson Rose. Mr. Gajewski.
Here.
Ms. Wiseman. Mr. Vestio. Mr. Colucci.
Here.
Mr. Mignella.
Here.
Rich Aller, Board.
Here.
William Burr, Board Engineer.
Here.
Catherine Sarmat. Here. And we also have Bruce Eisenstein, who's our radio frequency receiving for the CX tower application.
Well, welcome to everyone. And just a quick comment, if I may. This meeting will be broadcast on YouTube Live. It's also available for your viewing pleasure when the meeting is completed. However, it imposes on us certain obligations that we have to the public, and that has to do with using the microphone to speak into. So we apologize in advance if we're correcting your microphone etiquette, but without your speaking into a mic, what happens when you're watching at home is they look like you went silent and nobody knows why. So if we correct you, please take my apology in advance. With that, I'd like to open the meeting to the public. For members of the public who want to address this board on any matter that's not on the agenda for this evening, so something independent. And seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the meeting. Now, we have some minutes that are up for adoption. Are there any comments to the minutes from February 10th, 2026, or February 24th, 2026? Can I have a motion?
Mrs. Amin have any
Do you have any comments, Mrs. Amin?
the 2 sets of minutes?
Do you have any comments on those minutes?
Well, there was one little comment that I think she made the correction.
Okay.
I think we were told about that.
24th.
And it was just a typographical error or something that's not substantive? In other words, it doesn't change the context or the understanding of that statement. Okay. So can I have a motion then to approve the minutes as amended?
I move.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Oh, you want to do a roll call? I'm sorry.
They should be roll called separately, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
each one? Okay. So shall we do the February 10th first?
I move on that. And
And we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Chairman Kulak.
Yes.
Mr. Wodelli.
yes.
Mrs. Amin. Mr. Franco.
Yes.
Ms. Rose.
Yes.
Mr. Gajewski.
Yes.
Mr. Colucci.
Yes.
Mr. Mignella.
Yes.
Thank you. So similarly, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from February 24th, 2026. Mr. Weidelli makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second again.
Is that Mr. Franco?
Yes. Yeah.
Very well. And Nancy?
Chairman Kulak,
Yes?
Mr. Wadelli,
Yes.
Mrs. Amin,
Yes.
Mr. Franco,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Colucci,
Yes.
and Mr. Mignella.
Yes.
Thank you. We had a resolution listed on the agenda, and unfortunately, we were unable to get that resolution distributed in time for everyone to review. So we're going to postpone the approval of that resolution until the following meeting. Now, with respect to land development applications, we have two this evening. One is for Garden Oak Specialties Incorporated, and the second is for CX Tower Leasing. We're going to try and split the meeting as equally as we can, and then depending upon the progress we make in each of the cases, where in the first case, we may have to extend slightly, but we'll see how things move forward and what the timeline looks like. So with that, we'd like to proceed with application number 25-016ZB, Garden Oak Specialties Company, Inc. And do you have an attorney present who will be making your case? And we do.
Yes. Good evening. Good evening, John Sullivan. I'm an attorney with the offices of Vastola and Sullivan, and I'm representing the applicant. The applicant is a corporation engaged in the operation of this particular property, and they use it for what I call the sale of yard implements. I'll go with this. Okay, yeah, so it's for the sale of what I call yard implements. It's storage sheds, designer type of sheds, lawn chairs, gazebos, like ponds and fountains. Pretty much all of those items are included with what we display on site, and we make the retail sales of those on site as well. The property is located at 1921 Route 22 West here in Bridgewater. We are Lot 16 in Block 81, or I'm sorry, 821. And the property is located in the C3 zoning district. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. This particular property has been used for this, as I understand it, since the early 1970s. We are on the westbound side of Route 22. The property is, it's fully improved at this point. It has a number of buildings on it. It has a gravel parking area. It's got an older well and septic system on there. And in a lot of area of the property is used for the display of the yard implements. Our proposal before you tonight is to continue that use and significantly upgrade and improve the site. We're going to do that by replacing several of the buildings on the site. We're adding site improvements such as stormwater management, site lighting, a brand new well and septic system, walkway, and a paved parking area. We do require preliminary and final major site plan approval. In addition, we are here for either a D1 and or D2 variance, D1 being a use variance and a D2 being an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use. And after we start with some of our proofs, I'm going to ask Ms. Sermad to weigh in on that, and we can decide whether we're going to do a D1, a D2, or both. We do have some additional bulk variance nonconformities, and we'll be prepared to discuss those as well. In terms of what we have submitted, we submitted a site plan dated April 14th of 2025, prepared by the Reynolds Group, Inc., and that was last revised December 10th of 2025. We submitted a survey dated March 1st of 2024, also prepared by the Reynolds Group. We submitted architectural plans, which are dated July 15th of 2025, prepared by Engel Architects and Engineers. We submitted a stormwater impact report, also prepared by the Reynolds Group, dated April of 2025. And then we submitted some outside agency documents. We submitted the March 25th, 2025 NJDOT Letter of No Impact, the Soil Conservation District approval from May of 2025, and the Health Department approval for the septic system dated December 26th of 2024. Our witnesses tonight, we're going to start with Madeline Wenz. She is actually the property owner. She's going to describe to you the historical use of the property. In terms of operations for the applicant, we have Jason Onyeshak. He's the vice president of the applicant. We have our architect, Elvin Engel, our engineer, Mitchell Ardman, and our planner, Kevin O'Brien. I also have our traffic engineer, Doug Poliniak, present. He's available to answer any questions, given the fact that we did get the NJDOT letter of no impact. We haven't had him submit a report, but he can certainly answer any questions that you may have. And if I may, I would begin with Ms. Wenz.
So, ma'am, would you remain standing and raise your right hand, please? Let me get our professionals at the same time. You would stand and raise your right hands, everyone, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And for the record purposes, would you give me your name first, please? And can you spell your last name? Okay, thank you. And would you each identify yourselves for the record as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wenz, you are the owner of this property, is that correct?
Correct.
And you've owned it since June of 1983?
Correct.
And before that, you leased the property?
Yes.
And can you explain to the board when you began leasing it?
We were using it in 1974. We started our business, and we rented it from Triple M Garden Center.
Okay, and before you began renting it, what was Triple M using the property for?
It was a garden center.
And by garden center, would that be the sale of storage sheds and yard implements like I described earlier?
Not sheds, but garden flowers, all kinds of things like that.
Okay.
Statues.
All right, and then when you started using the property in 1974, what type of business did you conduct on the property?
We did the sheds mostly, and then when we bought it, we took over the garden center. He still owned the garden center when we rented it.
I know this microphone's a little tricky, so you almost have to hold it in front of your mouth on a slight angle. No, you want to get closer, but not, and then just turn it a little bit. There you go. Perfect. I know it drives everybody nuts, but trust me, it's okay.
Okay, and you had looked for some documentation to establish that use, is that correct?
Correct.
And you were able to find a multiple listing sheet
Yes.
from November 14th of 1973,
Yes.
and that did describe the use on the property as the garden center business,
Correct.
and it also showed a photo of the property.
Correct.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as A1 with today's date.
Okay.
Is that the multiple listing sheet that you were able to come up with?
Yes.
And I know the picture is not the greatest. Can you describe to the board, what you feel that picture shows us?
Well, it was one-story garden center, and he had flowers all over, and statues and things like that.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, but what year was that from?
November 14th of 1973. Actually, I could be wrong. Looks like it might be April 14th of 1978. Second date would be November 14th of 1978. I'm going to provide copies of that. We did not submit this in advance. And Ms. Wentz, can you describe your full use of the property since?
Okay, we sell sheds, pond plants, flowers, ornamented statues. Then we sell gazebos, things like that.
And has that use been continuance since 1974 on the property?
Correct.
I have no further questions for Ms. Wentz.
So before we let you go, are there any members of the board that would like to pose any question to Ms. Wentz about her testimony so far? You're off the hook for now. Thank you.
So at this point, just having given that historical testimony, I'll just ask Ms. Sermad for her opinion in terms of whether we should be presenting this as a D1, a D2, or both.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sullivan, one question I would ask is, has this property ever been the subject since 1973 or 74 of a D-variance application?
According to our Oprah request, the answer would be no. We did not come up with any records in connection with that. I do know that at about the time that Ms. Wentz decided to buy the property in the early 1980s, they had come in, they had had a conversation with zoning at that time, and they were assured that the use was proper and it could be continued, but they have not been able to produce any paperwork on that, nor is the town. And I do believe what Ms. Wentz told me was that they were told they really didn't need any paperwork, and they were comfortable with what they were told.
When you say proper, do you mean pre-existing or permitted by the ordinance? Just to clarify.
I believe it's pre-existing. I think the ordinance was adopted in 1978, give or take.
Okay.
76. I stand corrected.
But you're saying that the business predated that adoption?
Correct, yes.
And Mr. Oler, I'm sure, has an opinion as well, because we're stuck somewhere in the middle.
Yes, and I think I would appreciate Mr. Oler's opinion as well.
Well, I think if that's an accurate date in 1976 for the ordinance for this parcel, right, then the testimony in Exhibit A1 would seem to demonstrate that it pre-existed the ordinance,
Yes.
right?
I do have copies of zoning maps, but I don't believe they go back as far as that date. So, or they go pretty far back, but I can't find one that applies to this property that's legible. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to note that I looked into that. But I think as far as the evidence provided, it seems to predate the ordinance, which means it would have never been permitted, right?
Right.
And then it's not very often that over the course of a D2 application as a proof, you have the actual listing and a photo of the property showing what was used for. So, yeah, in my opinion, I believe that it is pre-existing, and that it can be, this application this evening can be captured under a D2.
Right, I mean, it would seem, and you did a really good job of finding this piece of paper, it's a pretty important piece. So it would seem that I think, clearly establishes that it predated the 1976 ordinance, and so it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, right?
Yes.
So then it's a D2.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next witness will be Jason Onishak, and he's going to probably correct me on the pronunciation.
So would you also remain standing, raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And your name for the record?
Jason Onishak, O-N-U-S-C-H-A-K.
Okay, thank you.
What is your position with the applicant?
I am the Vice President of Garden Oak Specialties, Co. Inc.
And how long have you been in that position?
This position has been the last 5 years. I've been with the company for almost 15.
And during that entire time, you've been assigned to this particular site?
Yes,
And the use, as I described it earlier, is the use that's been continuous since you started there?
correct.
And I know Ms. Wenz described it a bit. Can you describe it a bit further in terms of what that use is?
So we sell a variety of outdoor structures, sheds, gazebos, swing sets. That is one of the main things. We also have a pond department that we sell all the water plants in, which is now the time of the year for them. We also sell pond fish, and then our fountains. We have outdoor mailboxes, just a lot of different outdoor accessories.
And you do display a number of those items outside? is
Yes,
that
we do.
correct? And you also do have some buildings on site?
Yes,
And we are proposing as part of this to replace a number of those buildings?
correct.
And could you describe the condition of those buildings?
So there are outdoor structures that we hold our equipment in. So extra nails, screws, hardware, parts for repairs for customers' sheds. All of our furniture are, even in the wintertime when the inventory has to go away, we have buildings that things have to go away, of course, and some of these buildings need to go.
They're not in very good condition, is that fair to say?
They're showing their age.
And so as part of this, we do propose to demolish, I believe, 4 buildings, is that correct?
Yes,
And we're going to replace those with a brand-new office and showroom building, as well as a new garage.
correct.
And we're also proposing to make some significant site improvements, as I described earlier on.
Correct.
Now, overall, in your experience with this particular site, is the proposed size and layout of the site adequate for the use?
Yes, it works perfectly for us.
And up to this point, have you had any issues on site regarding site circulation, parking, things of that nature?
No, everything on the property seems to run very smoothly.
And what is the average number of employees that you have on site? And I guess in this case, we'll talk about both your peak season and your off-season.
So in our peak season, we have a total of 10 employees. On our off-season, there's usually only 2 or 3 of us because we are a seasonal business.
And during the peak season, are all 10 there at the same time, or are they on shifts?
No, they're staggered depending on the weekday versus the weekend.
So how many might be there, maximum at any given time?
There's about 6 of us there at all times.
And let's talk about hours of operation again, both peak and off-peak.
So during the peak season, we are open 7 days a week. It is Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. Saturday and Sunday are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Off-season, we do close for a couple weeks between Christmas and New Year's. And then, of course, if it snows, we are closed. We do not open on Sunday during the winter, and everything else is 9 to 5 and 10 to 4 on Sunday, or Saturday, sorry.
And during the peak season, again, no issues with parking? You always have plenty of parking?
No, there's always plenty of room.
And you do receive deliveries to the site, and you do deliver product from the site to customers, correct?
Correct.
And what type of vehicle makes the deliveries to the site?
So we have a F550, which is a smaller single cab pickup truck with a trailer that they pull behind. We have 2 of them that go out and run and do our shed deliveries. So they're not big vehicles because they need to access the backyard for deliveries.
And what about the vehicles that are delivering product to the site?
So to our site, we have a 52-foot tractor trailer that comes in. Usually he's in the morning, first thing in the morning, 3 to 4 days a week. And he comes right in, and we have a designated drop-off area in the center between between our gates and our back section that we have. And this way he can pull right in, he can drop off, and then he pulls right out, and we don't see him till the next day.
And they're not required to back in or back out of the site, are they?
No.
So they can circulate the site?
Yes.
All in safety.
Correct.
Where will the garbage be stored?
So we have an area inside of the back gate that the garbage dumpsters are in, so they are in a locked and stored gate.
And how's the garbage pickup? Is that done by private hauler?
Correct.
And how often do they pick up the garbage?
They actually just changed us, sorry. Sunday or Monday is our cardboard dumpster, and then our garbage dumpster is Wednesday. So they usually come in the morning and they pick that up.
In terms of the, assuming that this application can be approved, the main building that we are proposing, what are we going to do inside that building?
So this is going to be to house all of our office space, outdoor product that's been outside in sheds. The way that the layout was before, okay, before we had moved building, the outdoor product was in exterior buildings that people would go into. You know, we'd leave them open during the day. And it's just very tight for people to get into, as well as our pond department. All of our pond supplies are going to be inside of this new building. And then all of our office space, of course, where we do all of our sales from, will be also on the showroom floor.
And in terms of the garage, what's that going to be used for?
So that is going to be used to, as we take down the older buildings, it's going to be used for more of that storage, so it opens up more space on the property.
And I believe there was also mention of an employee break room.
That is in the office itself.
That'll be in the main building.
Correct.
Let's talk about the outdoor display that you have now. You've described the type of items. Can you give the board an idea of the number of items, and I guess, you know, really focus on the larger items like the sheds and the gazebos?
So on average, we have roughly about 75 items inventory, but that changes constantly due to people can come in and see something they like and buy it off of the lot. That is one of our big things, but as of right now, there's 5 gazebos on the property, there's 4 pavilions for display, and then a number amount of sheds. There's a small horse barn display as well.
And if this application's approved, do we anticipate a change in the number of those outdoor display items?
No, the amount of product that's out there is suitable for us.
Thank you. That's all I have for Mr. Onyszak.
Can I ask you a question, please? The sheds that and the swing sets you have on display, do you sell those, or are they just samples?
Oh, no, we sell them. If you came in, you could buy.
Buy that actual one there?
Yes. Yes. You can't do cash and carry because we have to deliver them, but yes, if you say, I want that one, it gets marked and tagged and then delivered to you.
Or you can special order one?
Or you could special order.
I think I bought about, gotta go 20-something years now, bought down there, and then I ordered it, and the guy came and delivered
Yes.
it and put it in.
Yes.
Okay, so you have both options?
So you have both options. If you're in a rush, you can get something next week, or if you want to order, you can wait the 4 weeks and you can get what you want.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any of the other board members have any questions about Mr. Onyszak's testimony this evening?
I have a question.
Mrs. Amin?
You know, this new building has like a display area. What would you display in that area?
So inside of the building,
Huh.
we have our first is our space for our sales counters. But then also the backside is going to be our pond, all of our pond supplies. So we sell all the koi ponds, the fish, the food, all of that. So that's going to be in there. And then also all of the yard extras. So that, like I said, that's the mailboxes, the the poly flowers that we sell, all the handmade crafts are going to be in there, as well as lawn furniture. So if we do poly tables, poly outdoor dining tables and all, and so those are also going to be as well in there.
Okay.
Any other board members have any questions for Mr. Honishak about his testimony? I just have a quick one for you. You were talking about the garage earlier. And is it your intention to consolidate your vehicles into that garage in addition to having some storage space, or how is that going to be used?
So our vehicles are a little too big sometimes for that. It's more of a smaller, it's not a massive garage to put, in.
You're talking, you're good.
Sorry. So that's the one thing, is it's more or less that if a trailer needs to go in for, the big time is the winter. We like to keep that stuff inside in the winter. The trucks stay out, but it's more of our trailers are what we need to use all summer to keep the business going. And when they sit outside for the wintertime, the hydraulics, everything like that, just, it really puts a big toll. So we do need some area to put them in for the winter, as well as put some of the extra parts in and just our day-to-day operations.
Okay, thank you. Board members, anybody at this moment?
I was just
Mr.
curious.
Franco?
As far as the garage, is that something you could reposition? As I know it's real tight on the property line.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that more of a question for civil?
I think our engineer could be able to address that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
I have one more question. One of the drawings shows that at least maybe 6 or 7 or 8 sheds will be moved out to make room for your parking and whatever else. So you will have less number of sheds on the property then?
they'll kind of get shifted.
Yes.
Everything will just get shifted, so it'll be a little crowded on the one side, but they'll just more get shifted down so that they flow a little better.
Okay.
Board professionals, questions for Mr. Honishak about his testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question that I raised in my review that maybe you could respond to is that from looking at the site plan and in reviewing kind of the aerial data and historical imagery to understand how the property has existed over the years, I noticed that to the west, the adjacent property, there's a little bit of encroachment onto that property.
Yes.
And I guess I'm going to recommend to the board and to the applicant that be eliminated, for one reason being that I believe it would require additional D variance relief. I believe it's under common ownership with this property, but regardless, it didn't pre-exist the zone. It is a recent phenomenon. So I would, one, recommend that be corrected.
Okay.
Otherwise, D1 variance would be required for relief on that property because the use is not permitted. But also, in the future, how that can be controlled. Is there could a fence be put up there, or could it just be something that is monitored, or a condition of approval?
Right, yeah, we can keep that monitored, and just pull that stuff a little bit further back so that it's not on that line over on that side.
Okay, and that won't create any issues for display or circulation
No.
anyway?
No,
Okay, thank you very much.
welcome.
Mr. Burr, any questions for Mr. Honishak?
A few, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, you had mentioned when you get deliveries 3 or 4 times a week, they're via a 52-foot trailer.
Correct.
And just clarify for me, when it enters the site, it comes in off of 22 into one of the existing driveway openings,
Correct.
and then it traverses to the middle of the site. Does it then exit to the north on the private road?
So
or driveway behind your property?
Yes, it comes around to the back road.
Okay. It's labeled as Easter Ave. So it exits onto Easter and,
And then right onto the highway, so it's just a nice seamless loop.
in your time overseeing the operations and having that truck deliver, no problems with access or Easter Ave itself?
Never.
It functions efficiently?
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. And it just described for us, so There, I guess there's a fenced-in area, there's a fence line that runs across the middle of the site?
Correct.
Is that closed in off hours when the business is
Yes.
closed? But it's open during the day?
During the day, it's open,
Do you
yes.
have display products in that fenced-in area?
A
Like this?
few items,
Okay.
but not
The
generally.
public typically doesn't
Right.
enter in there, okay.
And,
Okay.
but that,
Right. Okay. And that fence is in good shape?
yes,
And there's no plans to improve or replace that fence where it is now?
no.
Okay. You had mentioned a break room, or I think maybe the break room operations, and I thought I heard you say that it was going to be taking place within the new building? Did I mishear
Yeah,
that?
yes, there's a small break room in the new building.
Because there's also a small building labeled as, I think, proposed break room. Is that correct, or?
Oh, is that what? Are you going off of that? So that's that's pre-existing, that's there.
So one of the sheds to the rear functions now as a break room?
Yeah, it's not a shed, it's the original, yeah, it's been on the property,
Okay.
so that's.
Multifunctional space.
Yeah, and that's where, so like, so that has just a microwave and refrigerator in there.
Okay.
So that's where usually our outside crew go when they don't want to get the office dirty.
Okay.
And sit at somebody's desk right now.
Is that going to remain?
Yes.
That's one of the buildings to
That-
remain?
Yes,
Okay.
and that has electric service and all that's
And the
separate.
use is going to stay pretty consistent with how it operates now?
Yes,
Okay, all right, now I understand. The shed display areas where you had mentioned you have maybe 75 pieces of shed, gazebo.
Right.
Whatever it is, scattered around the property. Do the locations of those products ever change? Or, if a customer comes in and buys a shed from that location, when you replace it, does the new display shed generally go right there? Or,
sometimes
the
something
change?
doesn't get put back.
Okay.
Just because of our lead time and things like that, so there might be a blank space until it gets restocked. Like in the wintertime, it gets empty that there's, 10 sheds out there compared to 30 on that area. So it all depends on what's coming in, what's going out.
Okay, all right. And then we heard testimony about number of employees on site, hours of operation. Anything changing from the way the business operates today to, if this was to be approved, how it would function? Or is everything you testified to, how it operates now and how it will continue, that's the plan?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, Mrs. Amin, you have another question? Did you have a question?
okay. I have a question regarding your site. At present has like a septic system and a well. Why are you planning to put a new septic system and not connect the township's sewer line?
Unfortunately, we do not have sewer on that part of Route 22.
Don't have sewer line in that area?
No.
Oh,
We are the unfortunate part of Route 22.
okay. And how about water line?
Same thing, that's why we have a new well going in.
And I'm sure you'll have your engineer testify to this as well, or not true?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I wish we did, but we don't.
With that, let me just pause for a moment and see if there are any questions from the public for any of the testimony that Mr. Onashek has made this evening. And seeing none, we'll close that portion. Any final questions from the board members? So, Mr. Sullivan, where do we go from here?
Our next witness will be our architect, Mr. Engel.
Thank you. You have to swear him in, too, yeah? You have to swear him in? Yeah, okay. And it looks like we'll give you a minute or two to set up your visual aids.
You're going to need to set that up so our board professionals can see that as well.
Looks like we have both analog and digital coming.
Okay, then would you raise your right hand, please? I'll swear you. You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And would you state your full name for the record, please?
You can use the mic right at the podium there if you'd like.
My name is Elvin Engel, from Engel Architects in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
And can you spell that, please?
Engel.
And your first name?
Elvin,
Elvin?
Elvin.
Mr. Engel, welcome. I think you already swore.
Yeah, you've been, no, yes, please consider yourself to be under oath. Would you just review your professional background and education with the board, please?
Okay, yeah, goes back a few years. I'm a graduate of Drexel University with a Bachelor of Architecture. I've worked I started Engel Architects in 1990, so been at it for a few years. Before that, I got my internship in at an architectural firm in Lancaster prior to that. So I'm registered in a few states. I started out registered in Pennsylvania. I'm registered architect in New Jersey, New York, and a few other states.
And your license in New Jersey is current?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Engel, you had prepared the architectural plans that we have submitted to the board,
Yes, I did.
and could you explain to the board what we are proposing in terms of the structures?
Okay, it's a very simple building. It's,
I'm sorry, but before you start pointing to those boards, do we have those already? Or is that new?
Yes, so Mr. Engel, these are just duplicates of what we've previously submitted to the board, correct?
yeah, I took some of the clutter off, some of the notes, so that it's a little easier to read. Other than
Okay,
that,
so we're going to mark it then. Let's mark the one on my left to A2. All right, and then I'm going to ask you to describe what A2 is, and then we'll go to the next one.
okay, A2 is the second floor plan. There's a second floor in part of the building. The middle part, the building is,
I know this is going to be difficult for you because I see you trying to talk into the mic and point to the, if you want to give him the handheld while he's pointing, and
it may work a little.
you can switch off. See if that works for you.
Okay, yeah, on sheet A2, because the building is 40 foot by 80 foot, and both sides, both 80-foot lengths, have a 10-foot concrete, a roof-covered porch. So when you include that roof-covered porch on both sides, then that would be 60 overall, 60 foot by 80 foot. So there's 4,800 square feet on the roof. And like I said, it's considered a two-story building. This is actually the second floor plan. It's, there's a 20-foot section at both ends that has a second floor. On the left side are two offices on the second floor. On the right side is mechanical area and some storage. And that's it for the second floor. The middle section is all open to the roof. It's just a one-story building open to the roof. Then if we go to the other drawing,
Before you go to that drawing, we're going to mark that A3.
E3,
I
okay.
think Mr. Sullivan can help you out there.
And John, just put today's date too. I can't see the first one you marked, but just so that we have today's date on it.
Yeah, I have it on both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the first floor,
I'm sorry, so just give us a description of what A3 is. Is that the first floor
okay.
plan?
On sheet A3,
Yes.
the first floor is, the whole center part is just an open area for a showroom. And the 20-foot on each end, now the underneath the second floor, the 20-foot on the left side, there's 3 offices there. It's sort of an open office area plus 2 enclosed offices. On the right-hand side is it's a utility room and two restrooms, and in the back right corner is a break room for employees. And other than that, it's pretty much open for product display in this big open area in the middle.
And that space in the middle is open right to the roof.
It goes the whole way to the roof.
Thank you.
Now, this building, it's a wood frame building, and it has pre-engineered roof trusses, and we call it a post and beam building. It's years ago people called them pole barns because they were used a lot on farms for farm buildings. So there's a post every 8 foot, and then between the posts are 2x8 studs, 24 inches on center. And of course, it's insulated walls, insulated ceiling. And those that are not familiar with a pole building or a post and beam building, now this is actually a foundation plan. This would be A4, I guess.
A4.
Okay, these circles you'll see on this sheet A4, they're the foundations that underneath each one of the posts. And what they do, they come in with an auger, and the size of those are the diameter of those are they're engineered based on the amount of weight coming down that post. And it's based on 3,000 square foot bearing capacity of the soil and that type of thing. So each one of these circles has a concrete 12 inches thick, and most of them are like 26-inch diameter. So they dig them with an auger. They put 12 inches of concrete down there, set the wood post in there, and then fill it up with dirt. And then later, after the concrete's poured, then they come in and build a stud wall between the posts. And a building, if you took this building shown on A3, well, or A2, but if you took a knife and just sliced this building, and then what you would see, then we have a section showing how that building is constructed. I guess this is A5.
A5, yes.
A5 is 3 details. One of them is a building section. If you just cut the building in half, this is what it would look like on the lower left corner. It has an in that center part that's open the whole way to the roof, it would be 18 foot from the concrete floor to the bottom, to the second floor ceiling. And like I said, the roof is framed with pre-engineered roof trusses at 24 inches on center. And then we'd have it'd be a drywall ceiling with insulation on top of the drywall. And the attic area, what we call the attic area up there is vented. We have a continuous ridge vent and vented soffit, so it gets circulation up there to deal with condensation. The walls then are insulated with fiberglass insulation. And then the concrete floor has crushed stone under it. The section on the...
Actually, let me just stop you. I think you've given enough detail on the construction.
Okay,
Perhaps we move on to the elevations and
Okay.
rendering at this point.
okay. Yeah, I have some elevations of what the building will look like, and then we do have another drawing then with the colors.
The elevations will be
That'd be A6. And here's another one. That would be A7.
Excuse me, if you could put the rendering on the screen, please. Thank you.
So sheet A6 shows the front elevation. And you can see this front porch roof. And then we have a reverse gable over top of the entrance. The siding is board and batten siding, but it's a metal board and batten. And then the roof is also a metal roof. Then we have these three cupolas up here. Now the height of the building from floor level to the very peak is just shy of 26 feet. Then the cupolas are to the very tip of the cupolas, the very top is another 6 foot from there up to the point of the roof in the cupolas. Then,
And that
Go on.
height is permitted in the ordinance, correct?
pardon?
That height is permitted in the ordinance,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes it is. Then drawing A7 is the rear elevation, and it's basically the same. There again, it has that 10-foot porch, covered porch. And at the bottom, the drawing on the bottom shows the end of the building, shows the porch on both sides, and it's what would show up as on the end of the left side. Now, the right side has a double door up here with a protective guard on the outside of the door there, and that's to get any equipment or whatever up there that needs it replaced or whatever.
Is that a window or something that you're showing on the left side? Yeah. It's from the second floor, right? It's on the second floor, right? What is it exactly? Is it a window or a?
Yeah, it's a double door. If they need to get some equipment up there, it's a utility room up there, so if they need to get some equipment up there or whatever, they can open double doors. And then this guard is here, that if that door is open sometime, and they're not taking anything in and out, that guard protects people from going out there.
On the floor plan, you show the window opens up inside in the building, not outside.
Yeah, those doors will swing in. And those doors will swing in, and then this will be on the outside as a protective guard.
Okay, okay, it's a window, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can put that one up. Now, as far as the colors of the building, there'll be a stone base.
So we're going to just mark that first, okay, John? That's A8.
That'd be A8, yeah. Yeah, that's the front facade with the colors that were selected. There's a beige, the siding will be sort of a beige color siding with a darker post on the outer edge of the porch. And we'll have stone up to the windowsill height, and a charcoal-colored metal roof on the lean-to roofs out over the concrete and out over the porch, and also the roof of the main building. So that's kind of the colors that we think we'd like to use on the building.
Can I ask you a question? What's the height of the building from the bottom all the way to the top of those three?
Up to here?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 26 foot to here and another 6 foot there, so it's 32 feet.
Okay.
To the very tip, the top of the cupolas.
I have a question, if I may. There's no handicap access to the second floor?
No, there's not. The whole first floor is handicapped. What's on the second floor, there's two offices up there. There's also offices on the lower level. So according to the code, you can have something up there, for instance, a break room. Suppose we had a break room up there that's the only break room in the building.
That would have to be, you have to be able to get to the second floor. So
Right.
the way this is set up, there will be no handicapped individuals on the second floor.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any board members have any additional questions for Mr. Engel?
Yeah, I do. What is anticipated to be displayed in that 18-foot ceiling area?
In that big center area? I'll let Jason handle that. What's going to be your display in that central showroom area?
No. You come up here if you're going to answer that with a microphone, please.
One around.
Sorry about that. So in that center display area, the plan is to put a pergola on the inside, also display one of our fish ponds on the center. We'd like to have a above raised pond in the center, but it's more or less just for the height of the building is going to be what was spec'd on that plan. But we do want a little bit of height, so it's not like you're walking into a cramped, tight space. We want it to be nice and airy, so that it's like walking outside.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's ask our board professionals if they have any questions for Mr. Engel and his testimony this evening.
I just have one question. Is there any lighting being proposed on the exterior of the building on any of the facades?
Or site lighting, I think that'll be discussed.
But no building-mounted lighting is my question.
There were wall packs in the package.
All right, we'll wait to hear from your engineer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just had a question. Was there any intent on putting any signage on this building?
Any signage? There was.
Just the main pylon sign out in the open area? Okay, all right. I mean, I like the fact that you're consolidating everything. You're kind of cleaning up the whole site. Gives it a much more professional, and I do really appreciate the architecture. So I think it's very good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Engel, thank you. I'm going to ask the public if there are any questions for you at this time. And seeing none, we're going to close that portion of the meeting. Thank you, sir.
Our next witness will be our project engineer, Mitchell Ardman.
So I'm sorry, would you repeat what you said? I was distracted for a moment.
Oh, our next witness is our project engineer, Mitchell Ardman.
Thank you.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And again, your name for the record, please.
First initial F, Mitchell Ardman, A-R-D-M-A-N.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ardman, would you state your qualifications for the board?
Certainly. I'm a licensed professional engineer, state of New Jersey for over 30 years. I've been testifying before boards throughout the state over that time for site plan subdivisions, and I've testified in Bridgewater for over those 30 years. It's been a little while before I've been before this board, but I have been here in the past and also had the opportunity to work with your engineering department in town for a good part of those 30 years.
And your license remains in good standing?
Yes, it does.
Mr.
Thank you.
So accepted?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we accept your credentials. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Why don't we start, perhaps describe the site as it currently exists, and then we can go into the, as part of that, just address whether there's any steep slopes, environmental constraints, and then we can get into the demolition and the improvements.
Certainly, and I'm going to work from the screen here, and if you see up on your screens as well. So this is our dimension plan. These were submitted about 10 days ahead, the renderings here. Sheet 3 dimension plan.
Is this any different than what we have?
It's the colorized version.
Okay, so we're going to mark that A9,
Yes,
which is just the rendered site plan, right?
that's correct. Sheet
Okay.
3 with the revision date of the 12/10/25. Come on. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So as you heard, we're along Route 22 on the westbound lane, and so north is up on this plan. And again, lot 16, block 821, we have the rendered area, which basically outlines the site as approximately just under 3 acres, 2.955 acres. As noted, you've heard testimony, it's been operating as a garden supply shed location for going on 40-plus years with the similar operation. This is showing the proposed condition. I probably, for some perspective, also should go to the existing condition also. And there we go. So this is a colored rendering, or not a colored rendering. This is a color version of an aerial map, Google aerial image.
Okay, so John, we're going to mark that one A10, all right, the aerial map, or an aerial Google photo, right?
Right. Blow this up a little bit. Once again, you've heard the testimony, Route 22 on the bottom of the site, again, north up. So you come into the site presently on this right entrance drive, and the exit to the left, a little bit to the west of the property. Again, you can see where the existing main building was on the property, the parking area. You heard Jason testify that it does work okay now, but you'll see as part of our site plan, a lot of my testimony will be a focus along with the building that you saw, which was a major upgrade and consolidation. We're trying to do that for the site as well. You can see the areas of the sheds which are stored on the property. Discussion earlier involved kind of the front portion of the site, which I'm circling here, which is kind of the public portion. The fencing that Mr. Burr had asked about goes, towards the center of the property or so, and that's where that kind of demarcates between the public and then the back of house, if you will, the storage in this area. That's what you see on the site. To the west of the property, you heard is in common ownership. That is a wooded lot. There's access to the properties to the east and the north. This is basically a private easement or drive on the right side and goes up to the northern end, the Easter Ave, which is on the top or northern side of the site here, and that's a private right-of-way in that location. But again, as was described, the trucks pull right into the site and have an area for drop-off, and then they can exit right onto Easter Ave, pull back out, and have very good circulation in and around the property. And as I'll show on the proposed site plan, they'll continue to have that. Again, the C3 commercial zone, and there's some residential properties to the north and some commercial properties to the right or to the east. There are no environmental constraints on the property, no wetlands, no stream areas. Also, there are no steep slopes on the property, maybe 3 to 5% general slope on the property, so no steep slopes on the lot. Regarding any easements, are surveyed in on the property itself, turn up any easements either, and we're not proposing any with this plan. If that switches back, there we go. Okay. We're now.
All right, Mr. Ardman, before you leave A10, can you just bring A10 back up? So just for clarification on something that was mentioned earlier by our planners, you're looking at the left side property line. There's some of those, I guess, shed buildings off the property.
That's correct.
Right? And so the proposal here is to do what with those buildings?
I think Mr. Onishek had generally agreed that those would be brought easterly so that they would not encroach on that property line.
And the kind of the most encroachment is not further up there. It's when you're looking at the bottom left corner. So yeah, into the property line left of there. That's really, you can't see it on this aerial on the image there, but you can see it very distinctly on the survey, showing, maybe 10 sheds. They're obscured by the trees in that aerial photo, but that's more what I was looking at, because that's not an inch or two, that's,
Right.
20 feet.
So all of the buildings that are off the property line are going to be removed from that property and either relocated onto this property or just disposed of, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Head back over to the next exhibit, which was 9, I believe. So this is, again, the color rendering of the site. Again, we're going to continue to have the same locations of the entrance drive and the exit drive along Route 22. This is the location of the 3,200 square foot new building that you saw the nice rendering of on the site. The garage, the second building in question, is on the westerly side of the property here. And to Mr. Franco's question, it is set at 10 feet off the property line. We felt that was, given the locations, the other developments, and that it's common ownership there, we felt that was still an appropriate spot on the site for it, especially with the other functions that go on in that area. But we can talk more about that as we go forward. So the site, as I said, you'll come into here, the parking lot, and again, in the theme of we're trying to clean things up on the site, this will be a new paved parking area. So you can see the spaces will be well delineated. The space right in front will be an ADA accessible space with access right into the building. There'll be a total of 17 spaces on the site, which, as you heard Jason say, they have a handful of staff working there, and 8 to 10 visitors or clients would be more than busy for a peak season, so the 17 spaces are more than enough for the site. And again, as you heard, and we ran the turning templates, but I think you heard from operationally that 30 years of business is as good as a turning template, to be honest with you, that they have good access through the site. It's not any backup on 22, and they can pull through the property and have good circulation throughout the property. There was a question about loading, I think, in the planning report. So there's no need for a loading dock per se, but the offloading area is as you come into the property. And so we can designate if it's desired, but I think just in general, you heard the testimony of where loading occurs, and it's out of the kind of public area and out of the parking area. Regarding signage, there's that existing sign that's been there for forever along Route 22, and that's just going to be reconstructed basically. The top portion, the sheds will be 25 square feet, and there's a pond sign, and that's a detail sheet on our in our set of plans. That'll be 10 square feet. It'll be 15 feet high to match what's out there now, and the setback will be the same as it is now. Right along the frontage here of the property. In general, in regards to the site drainage and sloping and improvements, it generally slopes from the north, the rear, out to Route 22. Those drainage patterns will remain unchanged with this new plan, but we are providing a series of inlets throughout the site to pick up that drainage and control it better than just kind of sheet flowing out the drive. There is drainage along Route 22 and an existing pipe that goes through our site. So we're going to tie our new drainage on site into that new pipe. Again, a benefit of kind of the cleaning up the site is the reduction in impervious area, all that hard packed stone that you see out there now. Coverage will be reduced from 77.9% to just about 70.9%. So a 7% reduction over close to 3 acres is a reduction for this site, and that'll help improve, be part of the stormwater management that we're providing is by virtue of that reduced impervious area. Another upgrade is landscape and lighting. Right now, we're going to be providing street trees along Route 22. There are none existing, as Mrs. Martin in her report noted, but we are providing, per the ordinance, the required number and spacing along Route 22. So that's an upgrade from what was out there. There'll be nice plantings around the foundation of the building and the parking area, shrub plantings along, as well as along this side of the parking area. And that will help shield some of the cars in the parking area from Route 22, that hedge road that we're going to plant basically on the bottom or the south section of that driveway, that driveway loop. As far as lighting goes, there will be some wall pack mounted lights on either side of the building, and then there will be a couple of poles in the low at 14-foot height. There'll be LED lights, so they'll get good downward throw. There'll be good cutoff, so those won't go out.
You're doing okay with the mic. It's really
Okay.
how you hold it. If you
Okay.
hold it in front of your mouth, it picks it up pretty well.
Very good, okay. As far as Mr. Burr had a comment about on our lighting plan, we did show some higher foot candles along Route 22. Those are actually because we went out and modeled the lights there. They're the highway Cobra heads that are actually out there, and that's what throws off the extra light. It's not the proposed lights. So that's really just what there is along Route 22. But what we're proposing on our site, again, low-level LED lights with good cutoffs there. So that's an upgrade for the site as well. Question was raised by Ms. Amin about well and septic. Unfortunately, and over the years, I've done a few properties along this stretch on 22, and search as we can, if you go across the highway to the south, way south of the properties back there are the first sanitary lines that Bridgewater has. There's nothing in this stretch of 22. So in the rear part of the property, we did a passing soils test, and we did a full design, which was submitted, as you heard. We have approval from the Township Board of Health, and that note has been submitted. So that's approved, and will go in this rear section. And again, that was a lot of gravel area, so that's one of the areas that'll be changed over to lawn. And then a new well will be put in the front kind of corner of the building here to service it, to replace the old well. So that's pretty much it from the site. I don't want to have a lot of duplicate testimony, just a couple. That was site improvements for the building. The existing front yard setback is just at 46.2 feet. And as we're moving the building back on the site, it'll improve to 84 feet. Still a variance situation, but a big improvement from where it is. Again, the side yard setback is now 38.3 feet. That'll be improved to 50 feet. And as I said, the lot coverage, although over, will be a 7% reduction from near 78% to just under 71%. And the other improvements, the floor area ratio, we're well below. The permitted is 0.3 in this zone, and and we're just over .04. Just for clarification, we're counting the kind of usable buildings on the site, which would be the shaded ones, that break room or other space in the back, the garage, and the new building. We're not counting the sheds in that FAR, but all the sheds are counted in impervious because they're generally on top of stone in those areas. So I think in general that hits, the site improvements that we'll be doing. And as I said, we see this as a chance to upgrade a site that hasn't had an upgrade in many years. If there's any questions, or I can go through engineering and planning reports as well.
Before we continue, let me just ask the board members if there are any questions for Mr. Ardman relative to his testimony so far.
I have a question about, there was indication there's no easements anywhere on the property. I believe the residence to the north was the original owner, Mr. Russell, who's listed on the listing sheet. I've been in that residence. Is that you were indicating that there's a right-of-way sort of along the eastern edge of the property? Is that dedicated to the current residents of that home?
So to the right, correct, just to the east, that paved way there is, and we have the call out on our plan here that it is, let's see if I can blow that up. Yeah, that it's basically a right-of-way running north from Highway Route 22 to Easter Avenue, reserving the rights and benefits thereof, basically, to Lot 12. So it gives those benefits to the owners of those properties for use up there. It's not, that's why I said no easements, but it is an easement adjacent to our property.
Okay, it's adjacent, okay.
Yes.
As well as is Easter Avenue a right-of-way, or is that a dedicated street?
It is not.
Thank you.
Mrs. Amin, do you have a question?
Yeah, going back to your drawing that you have there, in front of the new building, there will be a parking lot, right? Is that going to be asphalt paving?
Yes, it will. It'll be asphalt.
And the other parts of the lot, there won't be any asphalt paving, only that area?
That's correct. The lighter gray will remain the gravel that's there now. So kind of to the public, those areas will now be paved, and kind of the storage area will remain gravel.
Okay.
With that, let me take a moment and ask our board professionals if they have questions. Now, we're kind of in the middle of our timing issue here, so let me ask first. Mr. Sullivan, I'm sure that Mr. Ardman can come back as required. Because I don't think we're going to get through this, and we have a split meeting time that we're trying to adhere to.
What is our cutoff time?
We're already at it technically, so that's why I'm trying to manage the time appropriately.
Right. So, I mean, I'm close. Unless there are many questions, I would like to finish only because.
No, and I would like you to finish. I just want to get a gauge of our time and how we can manage it.
Well, I'm done on direct for sure, and
Okay.
we can see.
The board professionals, what do you think? Time-wise, are we good?
I have a few questions, but I don't think the questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Take a ton of time. I don't know about Catherine.
Yeah. Let's at least try and get done with your testimony and questions that people may have for you.
Most of my answers will be
Yes.
comply.
I understand. Mr. Byrd, you want to start?
In that case, I don't know if I have any questions. Why?
Most.
No, Mitch, so a lot of testimony about lot coverage on the property and how this project is proposing to reduce the coverage from close to 80% down to 70%. Still over what's allowed in the zone, but one of the requests I made in my report was to provide, I guess, a calculation, a table showing the calculations of the existing and proposed coverage, as well as just better defining on the plan what exists, what's going to be removed, and what's proposed as far as coverage. You'll comply with that?
Yes, we will.
I think it's just important to have a good baseline of information here if this application's approved.
Sure.
From a drainage perspective, and again, I know it kind of goes hand in hand with the coverage, but one of the comments I had in my report was understanding that you're reducing the coverage and you are putting a few inlets in. One of the requests I had was, is there a way to capture the runoff from the new showroom building on site instead of discharging it directly to the state's storm system? You know, I had mentioned in my report possibly a dry well. It doesn't need to be a dry well. It could be a rain garden. It could frankly be incorporated as some type of landscape feature that might go hand in hand with the business. Is that something that the applicant would be willing to work on?
Certainly. I think a positive was our reduction of impervious, but I think I recall the last time I was at the board, we had a similar discussion on a project, and I understand the board's desire to reduce stormwater. So the short answer is yes, we can work together to come up with a plan.
Okay, great. We heard testimony about the well and septic. There was a memo from the township fire official. Ordinarily, that memo is something that gets carried through an approval, and then an applicant would have to address that through site plan compliance. To the best of your ability, you'll comply with the fire official's comments. I know he had a few requests in there that might be difficult to address, but you guys will iron all those issues out to the extent possible.
Yes, that was our plan, to work out with the fire official on those comments. Yep.
Okay. And then we heard from Mr. Sullivan earlier that there was a letter of no interest issued by the state, by Department of Transportation. In their letter, though, they referenced a furniture store. And I raised that in my report. Do you have any information on that? I know you have a traffic engineer, but I didn't want to bother him with just that one question.
Sure, and
rely
we
on
can
that?
cut to that because we worked with Mr. Poliniak's office on putting that information together. So you've heard about the ITE manuals. There's no category per se for garden or shed sales. So you submit it, you tell them what they're doing, but then you pick a category that you believe fits the best, and DOT has to agree and acknowledge that. So they basically agreed and acknowledged that was the closest category, because it's, you know, they're big items. You don't go out and buy a shed every day. You don't go out and buy dining room furniture every day. So it was a similar category. That's why it was designated.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I was clear. Two more quick ones. Site lighting. I appreciate you saying that the existing lights along Route 22, the Cobra heads, are what's kind of pushing you guys over your foot candles over the property line. But did I hear correctly that any of the new lighting will be shielded or cut off so as not to provide glare to any adjacent properties or the highway?
Correct. They're all downward lights. No, there will be no glare. Yes.
And then I did have some other general comments in my report asking for some minor revisions. I take it that you have no problem with addressing those?
We'll comply with all those questions.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank you,
Burr.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And with respect to your suggestions about stormwater management and some of the solution you proposed, is that something that the two engineers will work out, or would you like that as a condition of approval?
Well, I think if the board agrees that the applicant should try to do a little bit more with drainage, given the nature of the relief that's requested, I think it should be incorporated as a condition. But the specifics can certainly, I would be comfortable working it out with the applicant's engineer, if the board is okay with that.
Yes, and the applicant's engineer is okay with that?
Certainly, yes.
Great, thank you. Mr. Oler, are you okay with that?
Have it, yes.
Okay. Ms. Sartman, did you have questions?
The question I did have was asked and answered through Mr. Burr, so I have no further questions. That's okay.
Okay. With that, are there any members of the public that would care to pose some questions to Mr. Ardman about his testimony this evening? And seeing none, we'll close the questions portion. And does that conclude your testimony, Mr. Ardman?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, I'd like to sort of end your presentation at this time, but not without asking you, are you comfortable where we stand? And because we're going to have to come back and conclude your case on another meeting.
Yeah, our only remaining witness is our professional planner.
Yes.
So out of curiosity, I've never quite done it this way before a board. Is that how you're going to proceed in the future? Is you're going to split time between the applicants?
To answer your question directly, yes, we have a unreasonably packed schedule, and oftentimes we're scheduling 2 applicants per meeting with the understanding that they'll split the time. Depending upon the nature of the application, sometimes we're able to get through one, and other times we're not, so we ask that in both instances, the applicants come back. And it has to do with our ability to meet the time to act portion, once an application is deemed complete, getting them on the schedule and at least getting started. So I hope that's acceptable to you in this instance.
Yeah, certainly. I just was curious whether this was a one-time thing or that's how you're going to proceed in the future.
Nancy, I'll defer to you as well, but I think I did an adequate job of explaining it, but you tell me.
I agree, you explained it perfectly. We have we've worked out some arrangements so that it doesn't have to go to August, the continuance.
Yes.
So,
So to answer your question, yes, we're kind of in this mode where we have to split meetings, get testimony started, and then ask that you return.
Understood.
And we apologize for the inconvenience it may cause to the applicants, but it's the best solution we have at this time. Mr. Oler, do you have any further comments or something to address Mr. Sullivan on?
No. I do want to check with Nancy, though, on time. Where are we on, do we need an extension?
And thank you, Mr. Hardman.
And, well, let me back up a question. What dates do we have available?
already available, but we can put him in.
Next available?
Extension of time, time to act is 6/16. 6/16. And we're looking at 6/9.
So it would go to June 9th? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
The planner's not available that evening, and he's the remaining witness.
Yeah, our planner indicates he would not be available. The best I can do right at the moment is, ask for the board's indulgence to allow him to provide his testimony this evening.
Well, here's why we can't do that. So the next application is a cell tower application, and, we have a shot clock with that application, so we need to get it going, and I want to give them sufficient time. So we can put you to a different date other than June 9th?
I think I'd ask at this point to carry us to June 9th. Of course, we'd ask that there be no further notice, even if it's a placeholder at this point, and we're going to see what we can figure out in between.
Understood. We'll do that. And although we have a week or two after that for time, I'd like to get an extension of time through our July meeting, just in case something happens and that meeting gets canceled. We can get out to July, 31st.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? No problem there.
28th. July 28th would be the meeting in
The July meeting. All right, so we'll have an extension of time through July 28th, and that's fine.
So with everybody being in agreement, Mr. Sullivan, thank you for your indulgence. I know it's difficult, but we appreciate the consideration, given what we're dealing with as a board. Mr. Oler, we're good to go?
Well, so just for the public, this matter is being adjourned. At this point, it is being carried to the June 9th meeting at 7 p.m. in this room with no further notices from the applicant. Now we are good to go.
Great, thank you very much. With that, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and we'll be back at that time and talk with our next applicant, CX Towers.
June 9th. Yeah.
First, we'll start, Nancy, with the roll call. Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Wadelli?
Here.
Mrs. Amin?
Here,
Mr. Franco?
Here?
Ms. Rose?
I came back.
Mr. Gajewski?
Here.
Mr. Colucci?
Here.
And Mr. Mignella?
Here.
And all of our board professionals are here.
Great. Thank you very much. So we're going to continue the business of this evening with application number 25-020ZB. This is the initial hearing for CX Tower Leasing, and representing the applicant is,
David Kenny, attorney with Snyder & Snyder, representing the applicant CX Tower Leasing. There's also two co-applicants, Verizon and T-Mobile.
okay. And please spell your last name.
Kenny, K-E-N-N-Y.
I'm sorry, I just missed it.
Sorry, K-E-N-N-Y.
And how do you pronounce it? Any?
Kenny.
Okay, so it could be any name, right? No, I'm kidding. You get that all the time. Thank you. So let's introduce or if you have an opening statement you'd like to make, we'll certainly entertain that now, and then you can introduce us to the people that will be testifying this evening.
Thank you so much. So the application here tonight is for CX Towers, Verizon, and T-Mobile. This is a property that has the water tank on it. It's located, located at 719 Route 202. This is set back behind the residential property that's in front. So it's a postage parcel lot that has the existing water utility on it, and there's existing antennas on the water tower for the four main operating carriers in the country: T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, and Dish Wireless as well. American Water has indicated regionally across the state and in the area that they do not want the carriers on their water tanks anymore. When they first were put on the water tanks, there was a lot less equipment, a lot less weight, but these water tanks weren't really designed to be communication towers. And there's also been problems with coordinating maintenance. They've often needed temporary towers to do refurbishments or paintings of the tanks. And that's been kind of herding cats, for lack of a better term, trying to get all of the carriers to relocate on a temporary tower for them to do the maintenance work on the water tank. As some history, there has been temporary towers here. The temporary towers were used at about 140 feet. We'll be discussing the site that we're proposing, which is 145 feet. So it's really in keeping with the height that's been used in past for the temporary towers whenever the water tank needed to be refurbished. There's also an issue with accessing the site and making sure that we secure the water utility use. Having anybody go on the site and doing the work, sometimes there can be damage to the tank. Sometimes there can also be, issues with, having someone access the site that we don't have a record of, making sure that we have a proper record of everybody who's accessed the public water supply, and restricting that access is very important. So for all of those reasons, American Water has decided to tell the carriers that they need to vacate the water tank. So if we lose this site without a replacement site, then all of those people that live, travel, and work in this area that are accustomed to having cellular service, they'll have a gap in service if they lose these carriers without having a replacement site. So CX Towers has come in to try to save the situation by providing a support structure that will support all four carriers that are currently operating on the water tower, and that will fill in any gap in service that would be created by the loss of that support structure without having a replacement in the area. So essentially, this is an existing site that those in the area are accustomed to, but the support structure is no longer able to be used for wireless equipment. So our applicant is proposing a new wireless support structure to keep the communications networks operating in the area that those working and traveling and living are accustomed to.
And with respect to your relationship with New Jersey American Water, how would you describe that continuing into the future?
Sure. So they're the property owner, and so CX Towers has a lease with New Jersey American Water for the location of the facility on their property. So we will be a tenant to New Jersey American Water. So they still want to have the use on their property. They just don't want to use the same infrastructure that they're using for the water supply.
Right. And with respect to access to the site, though, because they had expressed some concerns about security and so on, and will you be offering testimony, maybe not this evening, but will someone be offering testimony as to how the site will be secure from both your equipment's point of view and New Jersey American Water's?
Absolutely. So the short answer is that we'll be proposing additional fencing to separate the uses. We will also have security cameras located, so to help with additional restricting of the access and monitoring the site. But we will be able to have testimony on that later on. Maybe not tonight, but
No,
after
understood.
their application.
And would like to accomplish as much as we can. We know that we appreciate your indulgence. We're working on a short schedule, a timeline that's very tight for everyone, and we're doing our best to accommodate your application, knowing that we also have some additional time constraints. So what is your plan for this evening, then?
So my plan for this evening is to have our two RF engineers discuss the RF testimony for the site. Again, because this is an existing site, and it's really the answer is the loss of coverage resulting from the loss of the water tank site without a replacement site, is fairly straightforward. This isn't a new gap being filled. So we feel that that testimony could be accomplished tonight, and we note that you do have your radio frequency expert here tonight as well.
Yes. You have two.
Correct.
If we had two, would you have three? No, I'm just kidding. It's okay.
We have one for T-Mobile and one in general discussing height and RF emissions. So
Fair enough.
we'd like to call up Daniel Check of PeerCon. He is T-Mobile's RF engineer.
Very well, thank you. And we're going to ask you, I'm sure, to state your name for the record, and Mr. Oler is going to swear you in.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And again, your name for the record?
Daniel Check, last name Czech.
Ezech.
Yes.
Got it.
Has he been accepted as an expert or?
Well, no, would you just review your professional background and education, please?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in engineering from NJIT with an emphasis on communication systems. I'm experienced running propagation analysis for several wireless carriers. I've calculated RF emissions for compliance on several projects. I have over dozens of RF-related trainings and certifications. I've been accepted as an RF expert before the board of Piscataway, Parsippany, Union, and Woodbridge.
Very well. Thank you. We'll accept your credentials.
Now,
Thank you.
Before we begin, I just want to swear in our professionals too, so would our folks please stand, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And again, just for the record, our names, please. Thank you, everyone. Okay, it's all yours.
And then just on the screen right now, Daniel, if you could just explain where this is from. This is, for the board's record, this is part of the PeerCon radio frequency justification report that was submitted with the application. These are not any new or reproduced documents. They're just from the application materials that were submitted.
Yeah, I understand that, but just for ease of keeping track, I'm going to mark this as A1, okay? So A1 is just titled T-Mobile Existing 700 Megahertz LTE Coverage, right?
That is correct.
Correct. So, Daniel, can you just explain what this map is showing?
Yeah, so this map specifically shows a section of Bridgewater where we have the subject site in the center of the map. That's NJ08065B. And this is the site in question that is currently on the water tank and currently provides coverage to this area. Let me see that. Pull up. So for my reference, we do have.
Can I get a clarification? Is this what you have as Exhibit A in the report you submitted?
That is correct.
Okay.
So in this map, we have US Highway 202 running left to right, centrally located in the map. Then we also have US 22 kind of in the upper section of the map, and then these are both in like a darker shade of green. And then we have I-287 in the top right-hand corner, that's in red. And then on this map specifically, and it'll be follow suit for subsequent maps, we have coverage shown as neg 94 dBm. That is to signify in-building coverage. It is shown with a lighter green color hue on this map. We do have existing on-air microsites for T-Mobile's network shown with blue markers scattered across the map. And specifically in the center, we have NJ08065B. And in this map, that site is actively propagating. That T-Mobile's installation on this water tank site is at 85 feet. And as we can see from this site, it is offering a centralized coverage that sort of connects US 202's coverage for in-buildings, provides good coverage to the north of 202, as well as the south to the residential neighborhoods off of there, as well as the commercial buildings that span to the west of the site.
Daniel, not to just cut for timing, can you just explain, the green is where people expect to receive coverage or where they're receiving coverage today?
Correct. That is what dictates reliable in-building coverage.
We
for
just went
T-Mobile
blank
users.
there for a minute.
Yeah, it was just the screen.
That's
He
okay.
had to hit the mouse.
Just want to make sure we're looking at all the same things.
Thank you. And then I think it'll be helpful if we go through and show the gap. So if you could go, Gene, if you go to Exhibit C, the existing 700 without the water tank site, that's the next.
Before you do that, if you can leave it where you are now, it's fine. Just a quick question. As you were showing those other locations of cell towers, they provide coverage similarly for this area, and now you're going to be telling us what gap may occur. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So
And then additionally, I would add that as we're looking at these other cell towers, I'll call them, I don't know what they're on, buildings or poles or whatever, and they don't pick up the entirety of the area that you're now looking at.
that is correct. There are still some gaps in coverage, so to speak, specifically.
Is that true
Coverage.
for both T-Mobile and Verizon?
I can only
can only address
testify
it.
to
Okay.
T-Mobile's aspect
Fair enough.
of the project, as I'm not aware of their networks.
Okay, I'm going to let you continue. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
All right, so anyway, we're going to mark this map as A2, okay? And again, just for the record, it's entitled T-Mobile Existing 700 Megahertz LTE Coverage Without Water Tank Site, okay?
And Daniel, can you just explain what this map is showing?
Yes.
And be advised that although we have professionals on staff, we are not. So it's helpful if you do this in a way that I can understand it.
Of course, yes. So in this next map, marked A2 or Exhibit C on the initial report, the water tank site has now been removed from the propagation, so it is no longer propagating, it's no longer providing coverage. So we can see that a large gap forms in T-Mobile's network due to this site coming offline.
And Daniel, just for clarification, the green again is where coverage is, and the white would be where coverage is not, or where coverage is not reliable to that threshold level.
Can we just go back for a minute?
Sure, please.
Mr. Howard, you said A2 was which exhibit? It wasn't the one?
It's Exhibit C. So A2 is going to be this Exhibit C, the T-Mobile existing 700 without the water tank. We used for A1 was the...
Exhibit B in your thing is existing 2100 megahertz.
Correct, and we went straight to Exhibit C. We're just going to focus on the 700 band, even though the 2100 is also in the
Okay,
report.
Well, maybe for the benefit of the board, you ought to explain just the difference between 700 and 2100.
Yes.
The maps look totally different.
That is correct. Yes, you are correct. So T-Mobile is licensed to provide service in various bands, 600, 700, 1900, 2100, 2500 megahertz frequency bands. All these bands, they have different characteristics, properties as to how well they can cover an area. So with lower frequency bands, such as the 600 and 700 megahertz bands, they tend to cover a lot more as opposed to other frequency bands like the 1900, 2100, 2500. We can see when we transition to maps such as those, they don't cover as much, but in T-Mobile's network, they're equally as important as they provide capacity, additional capacity to these areas.
So as the numbers go down, service gets worse?
No, that's not
reverse?
how the frequency bands simply have to do with how the coverage is provided to the area.
So is higher better or lower better?
So Daniel, for lower frequency bands like 700, those would typically be used for phone calls and most of your telecommunication services, correct?
Correct. And then as we go to higher frequency bands, those are higher throughput, higher capacity channels, especially for T-Mobile's network, so they can provide a better service in those areas.
And just so they know what is used on the 2100, they would be voice over IP, but it would also be more of your data kind of collection. So we're talking about streaming videos, email, and other uses of your cell phone, correct?
That is correct.
With the higher band?
For the higher band. So the testimony he's stating is the higher band is used for more capacity. So that's basically used for your higher data packets. So if you're streaming a video, you're going to use more capacity of the service, but it doesn't propagate as far. The lower frequency bands are more for your traditional phone calls.
So does the lower band then cover less area than the higher band? Because I'm confused.
The lower band covers more area, whereas the higher bands cover lesser area.
The higher band covers lesser area?
Correct.
So when you were showing the earlier exhibit, and then you moved into this exhibit, you're not drawing a comparison of equals, you're showing two different things.
So we haven't shown the 2100. That was a question that would be what was Exhibit B in the report. Essentially, Daniel, the 700 maps would show the most amount of existing coverage, correct?
Correct. They would be the most optimistic in this case.
So this would show the smallest gap in coverage if the site was removed.
So if these are bad, this one's bad, the other ones are terrible.
Exactly. We
That is
can
correct.
show on the screen, if you'd like, the 2100 maps. It's like a dot compared to
They have the report in front of them, so it's just Exhibit B in the report. There's no reason to skip over it, just you need the explanation of why this looks like much more white area than the
Yes.
previous exhibit, and that's because the 2100 does not propagate as far.
Right.
Correct. But, Bruce, the reason why we're focusing on the 700 is because you would agree if we have
That's
the
your most
gap at-
optimistic.
If
That's
we
your
had the
best.
gap at 700, there would also be a gap at 2100,
It would
correct?
be much worse.
Correct.
Great. Thank you.
We're trying to keep everything a little more concise, so.
Exactly. And so then, unless there's any more questions about this map, we would like to move forward to, I believe it's Exhibit E, which would be the proposed coverage at 700 from the tower that's being proposed at a 145-foot center line. And then we can mark this as A3.
A3,
Correct.
right?
Can you flip between the two, the 700 on the water tower and the 700 on the proposed? Sure. Just to get an idea of the comparison.
So Daniel, I think what maybe that question from Mr. Franco was going is with this increased center line height, there would be an increased amount of coverage from what is existing, and maybe some of those areas to the north that wasn't covered by the water tank site would be covered by this site.
That is correct. So previously, we were at 85-foot center line where the antennas were 85 feet relative to the ground to the center line of the antennas. On this new map, we are now at 145 feet above the ground where T-Mobile's antenna center lines are emitting.
And then could you just go over in that area, just for the boards, there's some street names on the map. Could you just discuss or name a couple of the street names that are in the area that will receive additional coverage that's not receiving coverage today?
Correct, yes. So obviously, due to the increased center line, we get enhanced coverage to roads such as Vandervee Veered Road, Shields Lane, There's also
I think it's Jarman Place.
Jarman Place, yeah. And then, that's to the north, and then to the south, we can see enhanced coverage all the way up to Double Street, Ardemandeer Drive, Maple Street, and then Woodmere.
And it looks like extends just a little south of Old York Road that's there?
Correct. That would be the major road that runs through that lower section of the map.
So in your testimony, if the water tank site was lost without a replacement site, would there be a significant gap in coverage created?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. If the water tank site was lost without a replacement site for T-Mobile, would there be a significant gap in coverage created?
Yes, there would be a very substantial gap in T-Mobile's network.
And does the proposed site fill in that gap in coverage and provide additional coverage to the area?
Yes, it does.
Let's presume for a moment that the water tower site is no longer available to you, and you can't erect the pole that you're proposing this evening. Are there alternative technologies that you could use to fill in those gaps in cell coverage? Because I'm fairly certain that in the Bridgewater area, there was something called distributed antenna arrays, and they work with the satellite system, I guess, that exists today. Is that an alternative for these big poles such as that which is proposed tonight?
These are called macro sites, so DAS nodes, what you were previously referring to, they don't provide as much coverage as those types of nodes, and for the area that we see today, that gap is just far too large for a node to cover equal or provide equal coverage. So this macro site would not be able to be replaced with such technologies. You would have to deploy several.
Those smaller nodes, those are similar to the nodes that are put on the building, say down in the promenade. I know several years ago I was on the planning board and we had an applicant coming before us. And they were discussing the issues of bandwidth that they're trying to fill in gaps. And they were putting them on the roofs of some of the retail buildings down on the promenade. That's what you're talking about with regards to a micronode, the smaller. They don't provide a lot of coverage, but they fill gaps.
Correct, yes. They're used to provide coverage to smaller, very small coverage gaps, not a very large area like we're dealing with here.
How does coverage compare to bandwidth? I know it's certain areas, you've got more people utilizing cellular phones and taking up capacity,
Correct.
bandwidth, and how does this compare to that? How will this improve that?
I'm not sure if I follow the question.
So I think he's asking, is there a capacity need here for this site, and is there a reason for increased capacity?
Well, there is a high capacity need for this site, obviously due to how many users it does provide coverage to, although I don't have the capacity data for this site to provide testimony as to how many users could potentially be on this network at that time. But of course, every site does enhance the ability or the customer's satisfaction on the network.
But Daniel, just for the record.
I think I can help. Yeah, in this area, capacity is not an issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
It becomes an issue in very crowded areas like
Right, yeah, where there's more.
to the Lincoln Tunnel or maybe Meadowlands or something like that. Then capacity becomes an issue, but not around here.
And Daniel, just again for the record to clarify what was just stated, so this is a pure coverage site. We are making this application based on a loss of coverage.
But that is correct. Maybe I misunderstood your question. This is not to be a capacity site in a sense.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
At present, you have antennas on the water tower, right?
Correct.
So the height is with 145 feet pole, the height will be much higher, right?
That is correct.
will the coverage be much further out with the pole?
Yes, it's actually being greatly improved due to the elevated antenna center lines. So the height of the antennas is actually being elevated, so it's providing more coverage.
I believe his prior testimony was he just went over some streets to the north and south that would receive coverage that weren't receiving coverage from the existing site.
The next question I have is, if the antennas are much higher, will the signal density be stronger or not as strong as, because it's much higher?
Well, the antennas are designed to propagate downwards. They're not propagating, well, they propagate outwards as well, but most of their energy is radiated towards the ground. So there can be manipulation done to the antenna pattern to, with down tilt and stuff like that to make sure that the energy is being radiated to the appropriate area.
Not to interject,
The
but
strength of the signal that is, let's say, coming into my cell phone, is it stronger or not, is the question? Or video, whatever. Right?
Daniel, I think her question is that the distance and height for the water tank site versus the distance and height that'll be on the proposed tower, so it's a taller tower, would that affect the fact that it's a further distance by that height, would that affect the signal strength?
No, you would still receive the same level of service if you're, let's just say, in this green area, whereas before maybe the site was lower, so.
And in your testimony, Daniel, the difference in height between where it's on the water tower to the 145 center line being approximately 50, 60 feet, that's not a big enough distance to affect a signal strength as she's asking.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so you would still be receiving the same level of service and strength would be similar. I'm not going to say it's exactly the same. There will be a difference in strength, but as far as propagations go, it would still satisfy the end user similarly if they were in the same area.
And then before we get to board questions, I had just one more thing on direct. Daniel, not only did you review this site, but you also reviewed the potential of locating the facility across the street at a rooftop site that would be in the M1 district, which is a permitted use. And can you just, from a technical standpoint, what were your observations on potential for that site?
So when we did an analysis on the alternate existing rooftop, we did notice that with the antennas positioned on the rooftop, simulated at 100 feet, due to the height of the roof, we couldn't go. Obviously, we can't magically elevate the antennas to center line, same center line that we're working with at 145 feet, but we did see that due to the location being more westward, we did present a new gap to the east. So it did not offer the same level of service or coverage that the proposed monopole would offer.
And Mr. Aller, just A4, we put up the map he was just discussing, which is a coverage map from the alternative site across the street that was reviewed. And we can mark this as A4.
So A4, again, just for the records, entitled, it's your Exhibit G from the report, but it's entitled T-Mobile existing 700 megahertz LTE coverage without water tank site with alternate at 100 feet. And that alternate's across the street? Is that?
Correct, is across the street, catty corner. And we did have an affidavit that was submitted regarding that, and that's part of the application. So our RF testimony tonight is about the technical site. We'll have a later testimony about property availability.
Okay.
But after this alternative site, that really is all of we have for direct.
Okay. So let's open the floor to questions from any of the board members first regarding the testimony that Daniel's presented so far.
Yeah, so I have a question. So what you're doing is not just maintaining the coverage you have, you're actually expanding that coverage by going up to 145 feet.
That is correct.
Could you build a tower at the same height and maintain the same coverage?
We have a different RF engineer to testify to the height. So we'll have a discussion on that. But yes, there is an increased coverage for T-Mobile, but we have another testifier or another witness to testify to why we're at this height.
That's really specialized testimony. I'm impressed.
Very technical.
So you do wide and he does high? I get it, okay. So as you look at the map that we're looking at currently, this is the alternate site, and you're just demonstrating that it wasn't providing you the same level of coverage as the tower that you propose, correct?
Correct.
And Daniel, and as what was existing, correct? This would create a gap in coverage that wasn't there today.
Yes, we can specifically see Bluebird Way.
So it's worse than what exists today and worse than what it could be under your proposal.
Correct. Daniel, from your standpoint, is this a viable alternative to replace the existing site?
No, it is not.
And when you say viable, just so I'm clear, do you mean preferable or viable?
Well, when a replacement site is erected, the carrier likes to or needs to retain the same level of coverage that existed with the previous site or better. So in this case, with the proposed monopole, we're actually better than we were previously. But on the alternate site, we would be presenting newer gaps that didn't exist before in areas that previously had coverage. So there might be users that previously had coverage and now would no longer have coverage due to the alternate site.
So
Fair enough.
the alternate we're looking at now, 100 feet, was that going to be on the rooftop? That what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. We have, and we'll get to it later, he's reviewing it from a technical standpoint. We have someone from the applicant's team who also reached out to them from a property availability, whether they're willing to lease to us. But yeah, because that's in the M1 zoning district, we looked at the ability to locate on the rooftop there and see if that would work.
All right, so my question is, if you have the 100, you're right now at 85 feet on the water tower, you gave 145 feet is the optimum solution next to the water tower, and then 100 feet across the way on top of a rooftop. What would be wrong with like 100 feet, 110 feet, instead of a 145-foot tower?
So we'll get to that, but also there is a ground elevation difference between the site that we're on and across the street. But we have, like I said, we have a different RF engineer that discusses the height for the facility and how we got to this height.
Any other board members' questions? If not, we'll go to our board professionals. And we just happen to have an expert sitting in the house, Mr. Eisenstein.
So you may not know the answer to this, but I will ask it anyway. You're building a tower, how far away from the existing water tower? You know, approximately?
We have the next engineer who's going to discuss
Just
exactly.
give me a number, 45 feet?
I believe it's a little bit
Sound
more
about
than
right?
that. 43
I don't need
feet.
it exactly. I'm
Yeah, so approximately.
Close.
Approximately that much.
Yeah, okay. So have you modeled,
Approximately 39 feet.
have you modeled the backscatter from your transmit antennas from this metal structure that's going to be in the path of the antenna? You're going to get backscatter off of that. Have you modeled that?
No, I have not.
Okay, then the other question is, have you modeled the multipath that you're going to get on your receiving antennas, because they're going to be bouncing off of that water tower?
We do have another expert to discuss that. That's going to be Dominic.
That can be Mr. Vallejo? Yeah.
Correct.
All right. The reason for my question is I have some concern that that sector might not work properly
The sector that would be facing the water tower?
because of the backscatter off the water tower, yeah. I mean, I don't know that. It's a concern.
Maybe that's something
I asked
that,
if you modeled it.
Yeah.
And apparently you have not. Okay. And just in terms of rendering an opinion to the board, without the water tower, they have a significant gap, and it would have to be filled. Otherwise, they'd have a substantial number of customers that would not only have service, but they would lose the coverage along 202, which is really not permissible. I mean, that would be a disaster. The other question about the distributed antenna systems, those systems would not work for a highway like 202 where you have rapidly moving traffic. They only work primarily in relatively static situations, pedestrians or very slow-moving traffic, 20 miles an hour or so in dense areas. The DAS systems are good. They're deploying them all over the place now, so you'll see them everywhere. I don't know if they have them in Bridgewater or not, but they're usually in high-density areas with low-speed traffic, mostly pedestrian or static traffic. A car going 40, 50 miles an hour on 202 would be going from zone to zone to zone to zone. It would just lose all the signal. Wouldn't work.
What is backscatter?
What is backscatter? If you transmit something from your antenna, like to connect the antenna that they're putting up with a user that's in a car or in their house, they're transmitting a signal. And that signal, I think, is going to hit the metal tower and bounce back because the metal is a reflector. So that's called backscatter.
Right, thank you.
And as I say, I don't know. I don't have a model of it. It's just a question I have. I'll raise it again with Mr. Valleco.
We can absolutely look into that, but Daniel Check, could you just, in your experience, have you seen other cell towers near metal structures like water tanks?
Yes, I have.
And you didn't exhibit some of the concerns that Bruce was talking about in the ones you've seen?
Not that I believe.
So, I'm sorry, so you have seen backscatter? But
No, I have not experienced.
You have not?
No.
Okay.
What were the,
Is it possible that it exists, but you didn't?
This could be a probable case, yes.
Okay.
We can look into that, but absolutely, this is common to be located near these water structures. If you look at off of 287, Borough of Wanacue, there's a big water tower that says "Welcome to Wanacue." There's a cell tower right next to it. It's fairly common.
what about the heights of the two?
We'll have that
When you have a
next.
water tower and you have the water tower and then the cell tower next to it, are they usually?
That's going to lead us right into the next witness. Well, exactly, he's going to talk about that. It's a 103-foot water tower, so we need the carriers to extend above the water tower so they're not.
Yeah, you said there's other water towers, examples of this. I was just curious what the heights were.
It is something I drove by, so I don't have the exact heights, but it was similar to this, whereas the top of the water tower was right below where you have like the lowest carrier. And they're approximately like 20, 30 feet separated in distance.
So it's fair to say that where this has been done, where you're aware of, they are not the same height. You have never seen them the same height.
No, almost every single time they're taller than the water tower, and we'll have an expert discuss that about the signal.
Okay. Great. Any further questions for Mr. Check? Thank you for your testimony, and we have yet another expert to hear from.
Thank you, Daniel. No, nothing further. This is Dominic Valleco with VCOM Engineering.
Valleco, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, so help me
And
God.
again, just state your name for the record, spell your last.
Dominic Valleco, V as in Victor, ILLECCO.
Thank you.
And Dominic, as part of your review of this site, you reviewed the need for the height for the facility. Could you just discuss how the height for the facility was determined?
Well, I'm sorry, but before you do that, would you mind reviewing your
sorry, I skipped.
professional and
Sure,
educational background? Thank you.
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Drexel University in Philadelphia. 45 years of experience in the wireless industry, 35 years as an engineering consultant, 10 years as the Vice President of Engineering and Operations for Comcast Cellular. I've been testified in front of numerous boards in the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Michigan, and New York. I've been qualified as an expert at this board in the past. And I've been testified on behalf of the Department of Justice and the Federal Communications Commission in federal court as well.
I'd say we would definitely accept your qualifications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Vallejo, you submitted a report with this application regarding the height for the facility and how that height was proposed.
Correct.
Could you go through the need for the height for the facility and how that was, I guess, determined, basically in connection with the height of the water tower next to it?
Yes, I can. Do you have, if you can bring up page 4 of that
Absolutely.
exhibit?
While you're bringing that up, the other guy, Mr. Check, was from T-Mobile. Are you here as an independent witness, or are you affiliated with another company?
I'm here as an independent witness on behalf of the client, CX Towers.
Thank you.
And he wants page, you want page 6, figure 2?
Page 4, figure 1.
Okay. So that's this. And then would you like to mark this?
And we're up to A5?
Yep.
But explain to me what A5 is.
A5 is a page of the VCOM minimum centerline height and needs analysis report that was submitted with the application. This is the page of the report that discusses the minimum centerline height analysis, and figure 1 on that page is showing the down tilting pattern. But I'll let Mr. Vallejo explain.
Okay, and I'm not going to go through every detail in the report. What I'd like to do is, if we could focus on figure 1, what you'll see in figure 1 is you'll see these 2 pictures of a tower. What you see is you see this sort of grayish, bluish amoeba, for lack of a better description, pointing to the right. And what you see is you see one of them that points toward the horizon and one that points below the horizon. If you look closely, and it's probably a little bit difficult to see on the screen there, but if you look closely, there's a red dotted line that goes across the center. You've heard the discussion about the center line of the antennas. All of these antennas emit their signal from the center of the antenna. That's the way the signal comes out. So that's why there's always this reference to the center line. That red dotted line there, that is the center line. That's the horizon. So that's important. And a lot of questions have come up about the tank, and can we be at a certain height? Can we be this? Can we be that? This is a line of sight service. All of these frequency bands that all the carriers have, and this service that you use today, it's what's known as a line of sight service. You've got to have line of sight to a particular area. So when you saw Mr. Check's plots, and if the plots start to run out, what happens is that tower runs out of line of sight. It runs into trees, it runs into buildings, it can run into terrain, that type of thing. In this particular case, what we have is we have a water tank, and it's up on hill or elevation, and the signal emits today from this water tank. The proposed application is to build a new pole next to the water tank. The problem is today the water tank is the support structure. If the proposed application were built, if it was built at the same height, that would be an obstruction. So the same problem that we have where we run into trees, that type of thing, out in the field, now what happens is we bring it in the near field. And so if you think about this, you have your hand in front of your face, and I'm blocking my eye, but if I put my hand way out here, I can see a lot more. That's the problem that we have. So in the near field of these antennas, if we had the proposed height as the same as the tank would basically block it. And so what you can see here is you see this red dotted line, that's the horizon. The horizon's important. The other thing is you see what looks like sort of pointing down toward the horizon. So Mr. Check, what he had said was, he said that they service the customers, we're up on the pole's up 100 and some odd feet, 140 feet in this case, and it points down because the customers are down at ground level for the most part. And 2 things happen. One is these antennas, and if you look at this figure 1, you'll see an antenna pattern, sort of a elongated football shape. That's the way the signal comes out of the antennas. And then the other thing you see it down tilted. So what the carriers use on all of these sites is they use these antennas that point on the horizon, but then what they need to do is they need to bring it down a little bit to service the people basically down at the ground level. And that's what you're seeing here. What you're seeing, here's what we would have if we were on the horizon, and here's what we'd have where we typically have the antenna sort of tilted down. The way that these things tilt too is they can tilt them physically, but typically what they have is they have these antennas where they can tilt them electrically. So they don't physically move. What happens is they just realign them electrically, and then that steers the beam down. That's important because when you go through the analysis, if we can switch to page 6. And the way that it performed this analysis was, I take into account that if you remember from that figure.
I'm sorry, A6.
You want to move?
Right?
Sorry about that.
A6, this is page 6 of the same report, figure 2, minimum center line height analysis.
So what you can see on this diagram here is you'll see a picture to the left that depicts the tank, the current water tank at 103 feet. To the right, you'll see a straight vertical line. It says 113 feet, but that depicts the tower. The 113 is not the tower. I'll get to that in a minute. But that straight vertical line there, that depicts the tower. And so what you have to do is you have to look at where this tank is, where we're proposing to put antennas, and we got to figure out how to clear the tank because the tank is an obstruction. So the purpose of this analysis is to figure out what's the minimum height I need to have for these antennas to get over this tank. And to address some of the questions that Dr. Eisenstein said, backscatter and that type of thing. So if you look on figure 2 on page 6, you'll see this green triangle, and there's one of the legs of the triangle follows the horizon, and then there's a 12-degree angle that you can see there on the left side of the page. And then there's another side of the triangle that just skirts the top of the tank. The reason that 12 degrees was picked is, and it goes through this in the report, but these antennas have what they call a vertical beam width. It's sort of like the aperture of a camera lens. So it's what these antennas see, just like the aperture is what a camera lens sees. So what I've got here is I've got a 12-degree vertical beam width, but half of that's above the horizon, half is below the horizon. So I have 6 degrees that I've got to work with. And then, if you recall in the previous diagram, we had a little bit of down tilt to keep this focused down at the customers. So what we've done is typically it's between 6 and 8 degrees of down tilt that's used. So we did a nominal 6 degrees. So you add 6 degrees for the half of the beam width. You add 6 degrees for the down tilt. That's how I come up with 12 degrees. I then put this geometric diagram here, and you can see at 12 degrees, in order for me to clear the very top of the tank at 12 degrees, which is basically the focus of the antenna, I need to be at 113 feet. And then when you go through the report, what it shows is that typically these are assigned in 5-foot increments. It has to do with the towers and the tower construction and just the way that the towers are put together, but they're usually in the industry done in 5-foot increments. So we rounded that up to 115 feet. So basically, what happens is we've got the lowest man on that totem pole is at 115 feet. 115 feet will clear the tank, will give the coverage, actually, it'll give the coverage that Mr. Check was showing, and then, the tank won't be in the way at that point. It minimizes, as you can see, because I've got most of the main beam here, it minimizes the concern that Dr. Eisenstein had, which is this backscatter. And the other thing is, even if there is a little bit of backscatter on that lowest one, the carriers can electrically change that tilt to minimize that backspatter. What they can do is they can get a measurement of, it's called intermodulation, that's coming back into the antenna. And with that, then they can just tune it and optimize where it's supposed to be to get that backscatter basically so it disappears. Well, I'm at 115.
Time out. So you said that the lowest man on the totem pole is the guy at 113 feet.
Yes.
Which presumes then there are guys up above on the totem pole.
That's correct.
And how do you determine who gets what position on the totem pole?
Well, let me talk about the positions first.
Okay.
So 115, we just rounded it to 115.
Fair enough.
So the industry standard, and there's a reason for it, it's 10-foot separations between center lines. And the reason you do that is because all these carriers operate in the same frequency bands, and that helps minimize interference between. So if I have 10-foot centers starting at 115, I've got 115, 125, 135, 145.
Yeah.
So what happens is then the carriers look at the different heights that they have, and then they determine what works best for my network. So T-Mobile determined that 145, as Mr. Check had said, would give improved coverage over what they have. It'll give them no less coverage than what they have today, and actually improve coverage in some other areas throughout the township. And then it really comes down to who negotiates which spot first. But all those spots, 115, 125, 135, 145, all clear the tank. So all of them provide no less coverage than what's there from the tank today.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Depending upon which location the antennas are located, you have 3 carriers, right?
Well, there's a spot for 4 carriers on this. Right, because there was 4 national carriers at the time. It's Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Dish.
So each carrier can adjust the antennas based upon their signal, how it is. Are they allowed to adjust the antennas or in terms of like angle or whatever? No.
Well, what happens is each carrier would be located at one of those heights that I mentioned, and then they can adjust their antenna tilt a little bit. And the reason they do that is 2 reasons. One is to provide service to the subscribers on the ground, because the subscribers aren't at 145 feet. They're down on the ground. But the other thing is, the way that these new networks, 5G and 4G networks especially, the way they operate is they operate on the same frequency on every single site in the area. So every single site that you saw on Mr. Check's report operates at the same frequencies. So what happens is if it's too high and there's too much signal that splatters further, they start to create self-interference. So what they have to do is they have to basically tailor it, and they minimize the interference so that from a customer perspective, because they're always on the same radio channel. It's kind of like, when you're driving, for those of you that still listen to your FM radio, but when you're driving the car and you're listening to your FM radio and you're running out of coverage in one area, but you start to hear, like you're heading south on the Parkway, you'll start to pick up Philadelphia channels instead of New York channels, and they fade in and out. So what the carriers do, it's the same type of thing. They use this tilting to optimize that so that from a subscriber's perspective, it's not there. They don't know that it's there. It's always there, but they basically get it to disappear.
So between 113 and 145, you will have 4 different carriers locating the antennas, or?
Yes, they'll all be 10 feet apart. So it'll be with the centers of the antennas at 115, 125, 135, 145.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I live behind the Watchung Mountain and I can't get New York FM because it's line of sight.
Correct.
You're saying that these signals are line of sight also?
Yes.
And what I'm seeing here is that there would be, in essence, a shadow behind that water tower that wouldn't get coverage. Is that correct?
Maybe only at the very base of the tower, but that's the property that is controlled by New Jersey American, and it's wooded they're all wooded property next to it. But as you go further into the field, there's signal that's going to go beyond it. The only place you're going to get a little shadowing is maybe right at the very base of the tank. However, Dr. Eisenstein talked about multipath. There are some other things that come into play. There will be signal at the base, so it's not a complete shadowing. But yeah, there is a little less signal. It's sort of an umbrella effect. But it's still adequate. It still works at the base of the tower. I think one of the other questions, if I can address it too, by one of the board members, was about other water tanks. We had done this, my firm had done this a couple of years ago. We had a water tank in Keel Devil Hills, North Carolina, in the Outer Banks. They were a client of ours for years. They had antennas on the water tank, same issue as New Jersey American. They're looking to move the antennas off. We built a monopole next to the water tank. It was about 45, 50 feet away. The water tank was 160 60 feet. The new monopole was 180, and we only had 2 carriers at the top. So we cleared it at that point, but it's the same thing. We had to get it up above the tank. And there was a little bit different design on a water tank. This is a cylindrical one here. That one was sort of a bulb with a narrower base. So then what we did was we put a carrier below this bulb down lower just to get around that tank. But you have to basically clear this metal structure because it blocks signal.
Yes.
Board members,
The
any
height,
questions?
sorry, the height that you're doing is what it has to be, not what you want it to be.
That's the minimum to clear the tank, correct? Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I mean, the tank today serves as an adequate structure as far as signal level, and even though T-Mobile's got an increase, they have it today at the 85 feet. The problem is that tank then becomes an obstruction, which is what I said earlier. As opposed to the serving structure, it's an obstructing structure, if I said that right.
Can I have a question? You keep referring to clearing the tank. Right now, you have the 4 carriers on the tank. They don't, based on where they're located on the tank, they don't have to clear anything on the tank?
I don't follow the question.
Keep referring, you have to be 145 feet to put the 4 carriers on to clear the tank. Right now, they're on the tank, but they're not on top of each other. They're spread out around the
Correct.
tank. But they don't have any clearance of the tank because of where they're located?
I understand the question. These antennas are directional antennas. They project outwards. So what happens is if you look at some of the pictures, you'll see these antennas are fixed to the outside of the tank and they project outward. So what happens is they have antennas on both sides of the tank. The tank itself doesn't interfere because they're projecting away from the tank. So now what happens when we put the pole up next to it, they're going to be projecting into the tank, and that's why we have to clear the tank.
Okay, then my next question would be is they're on the tank, they don't have to clear it. So now you're only 40-something feet away from the tank, the new tower. What happens if the tower, the new, was, say, 500 feet away?
500 feet would be a different, at 500 feet, we'd have to take a look and see. It depends on what else was in the area, but 500 feet, the tank would likely be less of an issue.
Because, I mean, 145 feet is a tall tower.
That's an average tower in the wireless industry.
How high could we go based on ordinance?
Well, let's refer to some of our experts. The question was how high is appropriate given the ordinance, height ordinances that we have, or do they not restrict the cell towers?
The height for the zone, for the C7 zone, of which this is located in, restricts structures to 45 feet. The standards for wireless communication towers within the township code elsewhere don't prescribe a specific height for monopoles like an allowance, right? They're still subject to the zone requirements that they're located in, but there are, limitations on setbacks and things like that that are imposed.
That means whether it's 100 feet or 175 feet, it falls under the same.
Anything over 45 feet or whatever D variance would be 10% or 10 feet, right?
Yeah, that's why it's a.
So anything over basically 54 feet or, 49 feet would be a height variance. So whether it's, like you said, Jim.
They're not going to build a 49-foot tower.
And the water tower currently exceeds that height restriction as well.
That's 85
Correct.
feet.
113 feet is what we're showing. But the issue is, or 103 feet. The issue was, I think, the height limitation of the question is there isn't a height limitation set for this type of structure or this type of use. Because we're in the C7 district and we need a D1 use variance, then we're subject to the underlying height requirement for the C7. But if we were in the M1 district, there wouldn't need to be a height variance because we would be compliant with being in a permitted use. Again, part of the reason for the height is, as we just discussed, is the need to clear the water tank. But this was an application that was previously made and withdrawn, and this is being remade. I just wanted to note that the tower has reduced in height since that prior application. We did go back into looking at what we could do as a minimum height, and so the tower height was reduced from, I believe, 165 feet down to 145 feet. So we have worked with the applicant to make sure that this is truly the minimum height necessary to ensure that all 4 carriers can achieve service.
So in other words, if there's less than 4 carriers, it wouldn't have to be that high.
Correct. Right now, we're for the 4th carrier, but there's 4 carriers on the water tank today, and historically, the nation has always had 4 carriers. So kind of one of the things where we want to make sure that we're building for all of them, because if we didn't build for that 4th carrier, then they would not have a space for service, or they would need to go on top and increase the height of the tower.
And you really want multiple carriers on the tower so that you reduce the need to have additional towers.
And the code calls for that as well. The code also encourages and requires.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely have more than 2, but encourages for all of the carriers would have a space.
Right. But while we're on the issue of height, can we talk about the actual height of the tower, just so we're clear about that, right? Because you're at 145 feet is the center line of the top antenna, right? Above that, we have the rest of the antenna and the
lightning rod.
And the lightning rod, right? So what does that get us to?
My engineer, who's the
can do it
civil
with
engineer
civil?
who would probably be doing it, I don't think we have time for him tonight, but I will state emphatically, it is 145 feet to the top of the steel. The antennas extend above. The tallest point would be that lightning rod, which is 5 feet above, which would be 150 feet. So that would be the tallest point on the tower would be 150 feet, but we're stopping the steel at 145.
Okay.
And then one last for Dominic, you just also submit a report regarding RF emissions.
Yes.
You just state emphatically that this site, if constructed, would be compliant with the FCC's rules and regulations regarding radio frequency emissions.
Yes, as outlined in the report that I submitted on page 1 of the report, it's got summary tables, and basically this is well below the FCC standard for RF emissions, and the way that the report was prepared, it was assuming 4 carriers. It was assuming every carrier has every channel completely transmitting, completely lit, and so it's maximum configuration, which is a worst case. Typically, what we see is that that's not the case in the field, but maximum configuration, we're still well below the FCC standards for RF emissions.
And then,
Let's refer to our board professionals.
Can I get one last?
Please, go ahead.
And then Dominic, can you just also just explain, this is a mature network and the limitations in relocating further away from the existing water tank site and the limitations that would be created with that?
Yeah, so this site's been here for around 25, 30 years. It's been here for a while. And as probably some of the board members know, there's been applications over that period of time, and the networks have been built out around these, especially these older sites like this. They become anchor sites in the networks for these wireless carriers. If you remove a site like that, or if we try to relocate the site, as Mr. Cheka pointed out, what will happen is if I slide it too much in one direction, it opens up a hole to the right. So then what happens is, from a carrier perspective, they now have customer complaints, customer issues. Your constituents, your residents now have issues with service from all the carriers in this case, because they're all located at this tank. So these things, once they're set, the rest of the networks build around them, especially these older sites. And then, I don't know, one of the questions was these small cells like at the mall and whatever. Those things are built for capacity. They're built and specifically set up to just address hotspots and capacity, like a mall where there's a lot of people. And again, all of these things are built around each other, and the network, to pull one of these things or to move one, it creates a problem, and now we're talking about additional sites in the area to solve the problems that we just created.
Gotcha.
That'll be it on direct. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about the emissions report. On your page 1, where it says the occupational exposure levels on the water tank, they're out of compliance. Is that what's existing now, or is that what would be the case after you built this this new antenna? I didn't understand what that 135% was.
Good question. That is actually the levels that would be experienced on the tank. So workers that were working on the tank, New Jersey American,
You're talking about now?
no, this would be proposed.
Proposed.
Right. So if the proposed pole were built and the antennas were put on there, and it's 40-some feet away, what's going to happen is, Dr. Eisenstein, there's going to be a lot of energy pointed toward the tank. So what happens is on the tank itself, we exceed the occupational standard. And so what we have to do in that case, the same as what we do today, if someone, and the New Jersey American workers are trained to do this, and the carriers know this as well, the two coordinate, we have to reduce power, potentially shut off some antennas or whatever, so that someone can go up the water tank, do the work, come down, then they turn it back on. That's what's required by the FCC.
What do you do now? I mean, if they have
They
to
do the same
service-
now.
Service the top of the water tank, you have to turn off your antennas?
They actually make them relocate to a temporary tower. So that's part of the reason for the request of this application, was that in the past for a refurbishment or for maintenance work on the water tank, they actually require us to remove all of the antennas, put it on a temporary tower. In the past, those towers have been 140 feet tall, so we've had to do that.
So just tell me one thing. I understand about the down tilt, of course. There's also a side lobe that points down that's going to be, of the antenna, that's going to be fairly close at the bottom. How about workers that are at the bottom of the tank that are working there? They're going to be they're going to be not only in the path of the down lobe, but they'll also get some reflection off of the tower that's also going to come back on them. I mean, have you modeled that?
They do, yes. In fact, when we do the modeling on this, it includes, we use the antenna pattern so that it picks up those side lobes that you're talking about. Now, that side lobe from the main lobe is down probably 20 or 30 dBs, which is 100 times the power. So it's significantly less power, but there is still power in that direction. But yeah, no, at ground level, it's within compliance. The issue is when they start to climb the tank, that's where it's out of compliance. So Mr. Kenny had said that if there's a major maintenance project on the tank, yes, things have to be removed. If it's a minor maintenance and someone just has to go up there, required by the FCC, New Jersey American works with the carriers, they'll shut down an antenna if a climber is going by that antenna, and then when they're done, they'll turn it back on. That's the only way to address that, to keep it within compliance for the workers.
And just for the record, you're correct that the report indicates that the everything's in compliance, but the numbers are much higher than I see normally. You know, the 43% in the almost 44% in the uncontrolled public environment is usually higher than I've seen most applications.
That's correct, yes. So what we've got is at 115 feet, we've got modeled as if AT&T is at 115 feet. And AT&T uses certain Ericsson antennas that are multi-beam antennas, and they're steerable antennas. And so we've had to work with Ericsson to get these antenna patterns and they're proprietary, so I mean, we had to sign all kinds of things to get the antenna pattern. But basically, they can send multiple beams into an area, and so we model the worst case as if there were a bunch of people down at the bottom and they're steering multiple beams.
You're modeling it as if the side lobe was, the down tilt lobe was as bad as possible.
In their one frequency band,
One
yes.
frequency band, okay.
Can you plug a gap for me?
I can just give you a summary opinion.
Oh, please.
He's done the study correctly, the emission study, use OET 65, which is an FCC standard for the calculation on emissions, and 100% is considered safe. They're below 100% for all their things except for the top of the water tank, and we've just had a discussion about that. They have to take safety precautions if someone's going to be working on the water tank, and that would, I guess, have to be coordinated between American Water and the carriers, all
Yes.
the carriers.
Yes.
Because you have to shut down the site effectively.
Just an antenna in that direction, and it just depends on where they're working.
What's
So
that sector?
it might just be one sector, it might just be, it could be that you could power down some of them and not all of them. I mean, it depends on where they're working on the tank, but yes, some things might have to be turned down or reduced in power, either or. This is worst case, as if everything's running at full power, where you
That
have
is
to
a
shut
good
it off.
point. When they do the modeling, part of that calculation is they assume all the antennas are on 100%, 24/7, which never happens. They power them down just routinely. Like at 3 in the morning, there's very little traffic going through the system, so there's no point in maintaining full power on them. So they're powered down throughout the day.
Perhaps for the edification of the board or the people watching at home, when you talk about RF, and you talk about the standards that are set by the FCC and so on, you're talking about levels at which it may be dangerous for workers to be exposed to this for some time. So could you give us a basic definition of what this is?
Yeah, so the industry had set this up. It was through IEEE, which is the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and also the ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute, and then there is European standards that are similar as well. But the industry has come up with calculations on how to determine the signal strength and how to determine these emission levels, and it's dependent upon the frequency, because some frequencies are absorbed more in a human body than other frequencies, and it has to do with the wavelength. So, for example, VHF frequencies are about 150 megahertz. A wavelength, if you think of your old sinusoidals from the top to the bottom, is about 6 feet at that frequency. 6 feet is like an average human male. Mm-hmm. What happens is an average human male walks around and is a perfect radiator or antenna and absorbs more signal at that level than at, say, 800 megahertz, like some of the frequencies that are here. So it's dependent upon the frequency, dependent upon the power. What we do is we follow these standards and the calculations that have been put forth by the industry from back in the early 90s, and then adopted by the FCC. And it's been adopted by the FCC for years, and there's been tests and everything. And so we follow those standards, we do those calculations, and as Dr. Eisenstein has talked about, there's 2 standards. One is what's called the occupational standard, which is a level that is for people that know that are trained to work around an area. So for example, New Jersey American or the carriers employees, they're used to working around this. They know, they wear a monitor, they know certain averaging time, things like that. The second standard, which is 5 times more stringent than the occupational standard, is also known as the controlled or uncontrolled or general public standard, and that would be for, say, Joe Public. And so what happens is that's the one we usually focus on. When we focus on the occupational standard, it's in a situation like this where we know that on the tank itself, at the top of the tank, because it's close to these antennas, we'll have to work with New Jersey American and their workers. Everywhere else, it falls within the general public standard, which again is 5 times more stringent.
Right. Because in the early days of this type of cellular communication, people were concerned about cell towers being erected and that the RF emissions would affect their health day to day.
Sure.
And over time, I think we've become so accustomed to cell phones and communications, and whether it's texting or videos or whatever it is, that very few people think about that anymore. But it's an important consideration for you when you're making a proposal such as this, as it applies to workers who are in the site and how they are trained to monitor their exposure. And as you've just said, for the public's purposes, the RF emissions are not a concern because of the levels at which that you currently maintain.
Correct.
Fair
Correct.
statement? Okay. And Dr. Eisenstein, did I mess that up too badly?
No, you said it exactly right, and that is correct. The public should not be concerned.
Great, thank you.
And I just, to tag on to that, the case law is that the RF is regulated exclusively by the FCC.
Right.
So, they are obligated to comply with the FCC, whatever the compliance requirements are.
And in that vein, what happens, that's the case law, but in that vein, what happens behind the scenes is substantial fines, other issues that they get. If they violate that, and the carriers all know that they have to comply with this, because if the FCC comes out and they don't keep records like this and they can't demonstrate that like here, I'm showing you that we did an analysis and that we fall within, but they have to do this for every location, everywhere. They have to keep the records, and the FCC wants to know that the carriers have determined that it stays within. If they don't, it's tremendous fines.
Right. In exclusive jurisdictions.
I need one more thing from him for the record.
Please.
All the equipment that will be used is FCC-approved equipment?
It's all FCC-type accepted equipment, correct?
Okay. But just for the
I
record.
have one small
Yes.
question. You know, you have 4 different carriers, and do they have to work with each other to make sure there is no interference with the signals with the 4 carriers, or what do they have to?
The answer is yes, but by design, because we've got them separated 10 feet apart, they work automatically together, so they don't have to coordinate on every single thing they do. We've got them separated purposely so that if one wants to make a change, it won't impact another one, if that makes sense.
How often is the test done that we were talking about before on the RF, that they have to stay in compliance with? Is it done once a year? Do they check that frequently?
The calculations here are good until they make a change. So what happens if they make a change, they've got to redo the calculation.
So in other words, if they put another antenna or whatever up there, then they have to come
Right,
through the whole
so,
thing.
so for example, remember, we just went through the upgrade to 5G. Another 10 years from now, there's going to be an upgrade to 6G. If more frequencies are allocated by the FCC and they add more frequencies to this, they'll make the change. If no more frequencies, because what they'll do is they'll refarm or repurpose these, so 3Gs will go away. 3G went away already, and it's now 4G and 5G. 4G will go away. When 6G comes out, they'll repurpose those. If it doesn't change, then the report doesn't change, because it's the actual channels that are being transmitted.
Thank you.
But, Mr. Vallejo, but if there's a change in equipment, if they swap antennas or anything like that, more likely than not, they'll be doing a new RF analysis report.
That is correct.
Thank you. Were there additional questions from any of the other board professionals? It's great to have 2 experts here who understand each other, and I think you were able to communicate it to us in a way that we could understand it as well, so I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Very good.
Great, so let's conclude for this evening. Mr. Oler, where do we stand?
So, Nancy, just to confirm, the next available date for this applicant is it July 14th?
Yes, confirm.
Okay, so are you guys available for July 14th?
Yes, we are available.
All right, so for purposes of the public, this hearing is going to adjourn at this point. It will continue on July 14th at 7 PM in this room without further notice from the applicant. Okay?
And then for the record, we extend the shot clock to July 15th. We can, on the night of the 14th, if there's a need to further extend, we can discuss a further extension at such time.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Nancy, anything from your end?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very well.
Oh, actually, I would, just one thing.
Please.
There is, just a reminder, there's no meeting on May 26th.
On May 26th, there will be no meeting for the zoning board.
There is no meeting?
It's early voting, is that right?
Due to
Or we don't have the room?
We never scheduled that meeting in the beginning of the year.
Right, okay. Any other issues that we need to address? I'd like to have someone make a motion to adjourn. We have a motion. Second? Somebody? I'll second it. And all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you so much for your time.
Might be coming, yeah.